Good evening and welcome to Horror Historian. My name is Amanda and tonight we'll be discussing the 2019 supernatural religious horror film, The Cleansing Hour. Now this movie comes from the streaming service Shudder, so special shout out to them. They honestly put out quite a few movies that I just genuinely enjoy, and this is one of them. It's kind of a comfort movie for me in a weird way. The director is Damien Levesque. This started out as a short and was eventually made into a whole movie. He is also known for A Creature Was Stirring. He wrote this movie along with Aaron Horowitz. Horowitz is most known for Blood Positive, which I haven't seen, but I've definitely seen things for it. Anyway, the stars are Ryan Guzman and Kyle Gallner. Guzman is most known for Step Up and 911. Gallner is most known for being a Scream King. He's been in The Haunting in Connecticut, Jennifer's Body, Scream, Smile, and probably the best part of the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. The movie opens with what I thought was a private hospital room. The possessed man is thrashing around and floating in the hospital bed. Through the power of God, Father Max thrusts the demon out of the man's body. He then turns to the camera and reveals to the viewer that he is live streaming. And he gives his parting words, which is mostly telling people to buy his merch. The moment the cameras stop rolling, Max drops the persona entirely. He thanks the actors for having participated, and the entire thing was extremely well staged. Drew wraps up the live stream, having managed everything behind the scenes while Max performed. The team behind the scenes is surprisingly large. There's a sound guy, an effects special artist, and his assistant, and Drew's fiancé handles the makeup section. They rent out studio space to stage these elaborate performances for their live stream audience. After wrapping up the shoot, the team goes to celebrate the success. Max does karaoke and even drags Drew up on stage with him. Eventually, Max finds a fan to spend the night with. In fact, everyone chooses to ignore since the whole celibacy vow thing is heavily ignored. The relationship between Max and Drew, however, is at a crossroads. Drew is focused on the future. He wants the channel to grow and start making real money. They are making money, but more money. He knows that if they keep producing the same kind of staged exorcism, the audience will eventually lose interest. There's only so many times you can watch it. Drew suggests collaborating with other creators and branching out, but Max dismisses the idea. He feels little interest in doing anything that doesn't revolve around himself. It's hard to compromise in this situation because, their lives are so entangled with one another that, they can't really move forward. Max is mostly frustrated that despite having so many followers, he's not verified anywhere. That pretty much summarizes his priorities in this situation. For their next live stream, Max has invited a drag queen to appear on the show. Honestly, that's surprisingly progressive for a religious live streamer, so I have no complaints there. During the pre-show partying, post-show partying, however, their boom operator takes some drugs and begins seeing some pretty awful things. Everyone assumes he's having a bad trip, but it turns out that he's just seeing what is coming to get them. The drag queen never makes it to the studio. She's heading to the gig, and she's attacked by something in the alleyway and is dragged off. That was unnecessary. She was already dipping. With no guests for that night, Drew convinces fiancé to fill in. Lane is far from being thrilled about it, but reluctantly agrees, mostly because in exchange, their honeymoon is going to be upgraded to Bali. I get it. She doesn't like Max. Right before the show begins, Max drops a bombshell on Drew. He has taken the chance to be the spiritual advisor for Dr. Phil. That means he won't be around as much, and he's not going to need Drew assisting him. He's leaving Drew to make more money and manage something that is going to be secondary to his attention. There's no time for Drew to process his frustration. The cameras are ready and the chat is live, so the show must go on. The introduction to the show is as dramatic as ever, with Lane settling into her role as the possessed girl. Drew feeds her the cues through her earpiece. Her job is mostly to groan and thrash around sometimes, while Max delivers his over-the-top sermon about the forces of evil. Chris, our poor drug guy, is starting to really trip out in the beginning part of the episode. He loses it and starts to drop the boom, so he rushes off set to try and pull himself together. He splashes cold water on his face, except what comes out of the faucet is blood. He freaks out, slips, slamming his head hard enough that I honestly thought it was fatal. I straight up forgot about him. He's just kind of knocked out cold with a possible CTE diagnosis in his future. Well, if he survived. But yeah, for that. Back on set, Max sprinkles holy water on Lane. He freezes when it actually starts to sizzle. It's a fantastic effect, by the way. It's just not what is supposed to be happening. Things take a sharper turn when Lane starts calling Max Maxie, a nickname that only one person in his life has ever used. He's visibly rattled while Lane calls for the special effects artist to come out and meet the audience. He honestly seems like a nice guy, and he comes out, trying to defer to Max and explaining he's just a behind-the-scenes guy. Nothing he says matters. His flame tattoos go up in literal flames. His niece rushes in with a fire extinguisher to help, but it only seems to make the flames grow bigger. He's burned alive in front of the live audience, and it is horrifying. I always think that burning to death has to be one of the worst ways to die, but his death solidifies that they're in some actual deep shit.
They're face to face with a demon, and she wastes no time laying down some rules. Max, as the star of the show, is not allowed to leave the set. Drew, who is usually behind the scenes, is not allowed to come on set. Their task is simple. Max is going to perform. Drew's going to make sure that the show continues to stream live. At no point are they allowed to take the live stream off. They can try and censor things, but they cannot cut the feed entirely. Drew scrambles to find real exorcism rites on an online database. The entire crew is hinging on this search engine to find out which demon this is. The demon turns her attention to the fans to make suggestions about what Father Max could do for everyone. The chat erupts with questionable ideas that Drew seems pretty horrified by, which is exactly what I would expect from the internet. The most innocent suggestion is for Max to simply get naked. I believe that is the most innocent suggestion. Max complies with Drew doing his best to keep the cameras from showing too much. The demon isn't having it and just lets the audience have a good view of Max. It's humiliating, but shout out to the actor because he is very attractive. This was not really the exposure that Max had been hoping to receive when he started streaming and taking these gigs. Things escalate quickly. The demon drops the overhead lights, sending fans crashing down, and exposes the set for what it was, a stage. If there was any doubt about the reality of the situation, it would be dwindling. The demon is looking to expose one of the most popular religious streaming channels. It turns out there's a lot to expose. Max is forced to do the hokey pokey under the hot studio lights with fans dangerously close to his skin. He stumbles several times, hitting limbs against the blades, and I'm not entirely convinced that he didn't, fracture something, even a hairline fracture. Meanwhile, Drew tries to cut the power to the fans and lights, but ends up electrocuted for his efforts. Max, to his credit, puts it all in there. He walks on some broken glass to prove his dedication, which is honestly way more than I thought he was going to do. The ordeal has triggered a memory for Max, explaining why he reacted so much when he was called Maxie. At Drew and Max's Catholic school, they had a teacher that was violent with them, especially with Max, who struggled to memorize the rituals and prayers. Drew, on the other hand, excelled and often got in trouble for trying to help Max. The dynamic hasn't changed much into adulthood. Drew is still helping Max through this performance of Catholicism. Amid the chaos, the special effects artist's niece proves to be the most competent intern imaginable, managing to save Max and the others. They finally get a moment of peace when Lane fights back against the demon's control. She's clearly in agony, but desperately trying to get a message to them. Unfortunately, not a single person listens to a word she says. She doesn't know the exact plan, all she knows is that they need to stop the stream. By now, their viewer count has skyrocketed past 500,000, by far the most they have ever gotten by a long shot. While Lane struggles to get her message out there, she starts to literally struggle when she begins choking. Max is ordered by Drew to shove his fingers down her throat to pull whatever is down there. It turns out to be one of their branded prayer cloths, a cheap, mass-produced piece of merchandise that funds their entire lives. Max and Drew assume that they need to confess that their merch is nonsense. The holy cloth is made in China and shipped to Drew's apartment. The holy water isn't blessed, and it's just tap water. I guess you could use tap water if it's blessed, but the point is, it's not blessed, nor is it tap water, because Max isn't a real priest, so he cannot do a cursory blessing of, a giant thing of tap water. I don't really know how this stuff works, but I'm trying, guys. The entire operation is built entirely on theatrics, which isn't surprising, but yeah, they've sold a lot of things that were not what they claimed it was. At first, this confession seems to calm down with Lane breathing, but then she starts choking again, and when Max runs in to help her, she bites down and takes a few of his fingers with her. She spits them out, though. The demon is fully in charge again. It turns out the confession about the merch to the fans wasn't the only one that the demon was looking for. Drew admits that he has been skimming money off the top, pocketing a portion of the profit and keeping it from Max. He logicked it out with doing all the work while Max puts in very little effort while getting all of the credit. Max makes a grand gesture of forgiveness, but he makes it clear that Drew will be paying back every cent, with interest. The intern decides that death is worth the chance to try and run. She makes a break for it. She's struck down pretty quickly by the demon, and there goes the most competent person in the room. I don't really blame her. This was getting to be a lot. The stream is getting closer to 1 million, and the signal begins to glitch and flicker under the pressure. They've never had this kind of audience before, and their system quite literally can't handle it. Drew rushes to find where he can stabilize the stream, desperate to keep it from crashing and keeping everyone alive. Lane takes control and just begs him to stop, to just sit with her and enjoy the time that they have left. Drew is so focused on trying to keep her alive that he's not listening to a word that she's saying, and he's running around trying to find where the weakness is coming from. Chris chooses this time to wake up, proving to me the first time I watched it that he's still alive, but unfortunately the drugs are still in full effect. It's the worst high of his life because Drew is calling him back into the set and actually helping while a demon intermittently murders the crew. His return to consciousness doesn't last long. The demon starts tormenting him with hallucinations that he had been seeing, which are these gross, mangled, dog owl-esque creatures. Chris ends up mutilating himself while trying to get the hallucinations away from himself. Drew and Max interpret that information as another clue on which demon they are dealing with. They are running out of time, and everyone knows it. The demon gives Max a noose of wires, and he has to hang himself. His fate is in the hands of the live stream audience, who are given the chance to just get the meter to 100%. Personally, my favorite moments feature the reactions by the viewers. The woman that Max slept with and a bunch of people at the bar that she's at, a rich kid that eventually is revealed to be the president's son, is absolutely desperate to keep Max alive. There are so many people pausing their day to tune in and watch this horror. What makes it worse is that pretty much everyone seems to agree that it's real. Father Max has always been known for his over-the-top antics, but this is a little too raw to be anything close to a stunt. Max is confronted with the hallucination of the woman that had tormented him all those years ago. Her presence forces him into a full confession. He admits that he is a fraud. He goes even further, revealing a secret that he has kept close to his chest since childhood. The teacher that scared him so much had gotten violent with Max, or got violent with Drew. And it was to the point where you kind of thought something bad was going to happen to Drew if someone didn't step in. So Max shoved her, and when she fell, a pencil had gone through her eye, into her brain, and she died. Max really had tried to become a priest and had gone to school, but he couldn't reconcile the corruption and hypocrisy that he was seeing happen as a member of the church. He became disillusioned that the Catholic guilt really does cling on to a person. This is the most honest that Max has been in the entire movie, and it's kind of refreshing to see. You almost, even though he's not a good person, you almost like him. The demon forces Max into the noose with the livestream viewers frantically voting as he starts to hang. Drew watches helplessly, torn between wanting to save his best friend from death and wanting to keep Lane from dying. He calls the demon's bluff and cuts the stream right when it seems to get to be too much. It works. The wires snap and Max falls to the ground, definitely still pretty messed up, but alive. Lane regains control of herself for a little bit and they all take a second. Something was said by the demon about seeing everything, and Drew adds Oracle to his growing list of clues. That brings up the demon named Amon. Looking into the demon, I can understand why they came to that conclusion. He's a creepy little dude. Despite everything, their egos are still big enough that they attempt to start... Ignore that. Despite everything, their egos are still big enough that they restart the live stream to show the world that evil will not triumph. It also will help them reclaim their reputation and make clear that they don't back down even when faced with real evil. Max begins to perform the rites with Drew frantically typing on his computer, trying to fill it in. Dude, if you are filling it out, he should have been one of the first ones. It's literally spelled A-A-M-O-N. It's like aardvark. It's one of the first ones you do. It's the great starting point. That is when the wires return and start to drag Drew away. He ends up being wrapped up in a cocoon, and they have to start confessing. Both Max and Lane have a secret that they have been hiding from him for the entire relationship. Before Drew and Lane ever got together, she had slept with Max, and the encounter was filmed. Lane believed that the video had been deleted, but they're suddenly getting plenty of that on the screen, and it's being live-streamed as well. To be fair, once something is recorded, it never really disappears. Shout out to the overlords at Apple for that reminder. Drew beats up Max, and the demon, ever the opportunist, offer Drew a way out if he kills him on the stream. I'm sure that was very tempting, but he doesn't sincerely entertain the thought. Despite everything, he joins forces with his now ex-best friend to finish the exorcism and drive the demon out of there once and for all. The two are thrown around the set, bloodied and battered. Drew keeps reading from the ancient texts he keeps around to finish the rites. For a moment, it seems as though they're in the clear. Lane returns to normal, and Max is banned from speaking by the couple. That's honestly a pretty good idea, since there's no excuse that would work for anything. Peace doesn't last long. The charred corpse that had been their special effects artist begins to move, rising to his feet. Everyone is confused, and Drew insists that he finished the ritual, he did the rites, it was done correctly. That's when the truth is revealed. The demon that they are dealing with wrote the book of demons that they were accessing, meaning that the demon is not Amon, but Lucifer. I didn't write it down, but it was something like the Devil's Demon Wiki or something. The demon had made a comment about messing with the bull and getting the horns, so it makes sense that a fraudulent priest would draw the attention to the biggest demon of them all, especially with his audience. Loses the camera and starts speaking in Latin. At that moment, the viewer count is flashing on screen. It is 17 million people, and I don't think that takes into account all of the millions of more people that are watching through news broadcasts that are covering this live. And that's when the plan unfolds. Every single person watching turns on those around them. A woman beats her husband to death by the side of the road. A police officer in South Korea shoots his partner. That little privileged boy kills the president and the first lady. At least 17 million murders probably took place that day. But at least Father Max finally got verified. This movie is honestly one of those movies that I can watch a couple times a year. It's not hard to follow. You can kind of, the first time you watch it, you can kind of guess what's going to happen, some of the secrets. But you end up rooting for absolutely no one. It's just, watch it, see what happens. You kind of become the live stream viewers where you're like, wow, what's fucked up, what's going to happen next? I'm not saying that major religions are a money-printing scam. I'm just saying that it happens enough that I'm forever suspicious when someone comes out as a religious influencer. I like that it was critical of the world that they benefited from. Drew was such a good point of view character because he's by no means a good person. He was scamming his friend out of agreement, and he was scamming fans out of what they thought was authentic blessed merch from their favorite religious fighter. Lane kept her from her fiancé for so long, her thing with Max, and it probably explains at least why she dislikes Max so much, which is fair. Max is honestly fun to watch get hurt because he honestly deserves some of that. He's a creep and he uses religion in the same way that he critiqued it. He has all the guilt from what he did as a child, that adding more onto it as an adult doesn't seem so bad. I enjoyed the story, I liked a lot of the effects. It's funny at times when it has the chance to be. It's certainly not the scariest movie and can even teeter out to goofy sometimes. The dog monster hallucinations were not done well. They were a little silly, but they didn't linger on that too much, so I won't give them too much shit for that.